Good afternoon, everyone. Hello and welcome to our presentation, Learning to Love Ourselves, Incorporating Compassion Care in Our Work. We're pleased you could join us, and it's our hope that this session will provide an opportunity for you to gain knowledge and foster better practices as it relates to mental health. My name is Mark Clark, and I am NCUI's Technical Assistance Manager, and I'll be your host this afternoon. Next slide, please. Here's a little bit about NCUI. The National Council of Urban Indian Health is a national nonprofit organization devoted to the support and development of quality, accessible, and culturally competent health and public health services for American Indians and Alaska Natives living in urban areas. NCUI is the only national representative of the 41 Title V UIOs under the IHS in the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act. NCUI strives to improve the health of the over 70% of American Indian Alaska Native population that lives in urban areas, supported by quality, accessible healthcare centers. Next slide, please. Just a quick glimpse of our agenda. Today's session is a 60-minute session, and it features our presenter, Dr. Bonnie Duran, who I'll introduce in just a couple seconds. But just a few more items about housekeeping, and we'll get underway. Next slide, please. This webinar is being recorded, and all mics have been muted unless otherwise directed. Please turn your camera on to allow for interaction. Again, this is a 60-minute session. We'll have about 15 minutes of Q&A at our end. Throughout the session, questions can be typed into the chat box. The question and answer session will be offered at the end of the session, but you can continue to use the chat box within, or we can unmute your mics based on your preference. There will be a pre and post assessment question for the audience to check, and just wanted to alert you that we'll have an evaluation that follows on the end of this session, because we really welcome and desperately need your feedback to keep us aware of your information needs and let us know how the sessions are received by our audience. So there'll be an online survey that we'll ask you to complete, and it may be in your chat box shortly. Before we begin, please note that the session will be recorded for educational quality improvement purposes, and that recording is already underway. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to tell you about asking a question. Your controls for asking the questions or making comments are at the bottom of your screen. For those of you familiar with the Zoom room, you simply click on the chat feature, and it'll open up the chat box for you. You move your cursor and you can type your questions in there or comments. And again, the chat box will be open and available to you throughout this presentation. We will be closely monitoring the chat, so we'll ensure that your questions are addressed, and we look forward to an active and engaged audience. Next slide, please. And now to introduce our presenter. Dr. Duran is a professor, Dr. Bonnie Duran is a professor in the Schools of Social Work and Public Health at the University of Washington in Seattle. She has worked in public health and social care research, education, and practice with Native Americans and Indigenous peoples for over 45 years. Dr. Duran is also a Buddhist mindfulness practitioner and teacher. She teaches long and short retreats and advanced programs at the Insight Meditation Society in Massachusetts and Spirit Rock Meditation Center in California, and is on the Spirit Rock Meditation Center Guiding Teachers Council. So finally, we'll have a pre-knowledge check question that will pop up, and immediately thereafter, Dr. Duran will begin her presentation. The next voice you hear after our knowledge check will be Dr. Duran. You have 60 seconds to complete the knowledge check. Dr. Durant, you may begin.
Okay. So hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm actually Zooming in from Seattle, Washington, so it's not quite afternoon for me, but I am delighted to be here with you all. And as you know, actually, as our wonderful upcoming generations have pointed out to us, there's no such thing as knowledge that doesn't have a social location. And so I just wanted to tell you who I am. So I'm I'm an urban in the San Francisco Bay Area. I actually started working at the Native American Health Center. At that time, they had just two of them in San Francisco and in Oakland. And I actually became the perinatal coordinator there. I was, well, actually, before that, I was a WIC nutritionist assistant and a community health worker from the age of 19. So I think I worked at Native American health centers, you know, fully employed by them for many years, and also as a consultant, you know, doing programming for them as well. So I feel like this is part of my home. I grew up in San Francisco. I went to San Francisco State and UC Berkeley. You know, definitely a product of the civil rights and American Indian and women's movement. And right now, as an academic, I do research on community-based participatory research. And, you know, that was just because I wanted to hang out with the community. So we had to invent something that would allow us to do that. And I also do alcohol, drug, and mental disorder epidemiology. But, you know, nowadays the trend is for more positive, strength-based, resiliency-based intervention. So I've got a bit of conundrum of not knowing what to do with a huge data set I have. But, you know, the reason I am even a full professor, I got a lot smarter. I learned how to meditate actually in 1982 before it was a thing. And I really, you know, attribute any success I've had to that. I don't have control of the slides. I have to request it, don't I? Oh, I don't have.
You should have access. There you go.
Oh, now I do. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Teeny buttons. Oh, so we're exploring these questions. So I want to let everyone know that I have 70 slides and 30 minutes. So I might be skipping through slides, but I see that the slideshow is going to be available to you all. And if you want any more information, please feel free to reach out to me. So I want to explore the connection between compassion fatigue, burnout, and past and current settler colonialism, neuroscience, and self-directed neuroplasticity. That's really what we're talking about, self-directed neuroplasticity. How do we regain resilience, peace, and wisdom, and you know, indigenous presence? Actually, there's a lot of foundational ideas in so-called mindfulness, you know, also known as Vipassana or insight meditation, that are pretty indigenous, actually. So what are the symptoms of historical trauma? And actually, I wanted to put a QR code here so you could have access to this document by Tommy Lee Woon. He's brilliant. And he actually was the chairman of the board of somatic experiencing for 20 years. He and his wife, Thea, they, you know, talked about how racism and sexism and other historical points of historical discrimination get trapped in the body, absolutely. So we experience it as pure exhaustion, burnout, overwhelm, hopelessness, not speaking up for ourselves, shame and self-blame, inability to recognize signs of resilience in ourself and our community, and withdrawal from relationships. And this is the document that I, you know, totally want to make available to you all. It's excellent. And Tommy Lee is brilliant. He's actually not taking a lot of consulting right now, but he is, you know, really excellent. Actually, he's doing a training now for white people to decolonize their racism. So if you know any white people that want to do that, you could contact him. So this is just about the effects of prejudice, discrimination, and inequity in the body. And what happens is, you know, this is our normal anatomical nervous system, is that, you know, we get traumatized, and then, you know, we're able to clear it. But when you have, this is the normal cycle, you're able to clear it. And we know, what do animals do to clear their trauma and stress? They shake, right? They shake. So actually, once, you know, if you're in the middle of a trauma cycle, you might try shaking it out. Taylor Swift was right. No, just kidding. So normally we're relaxed and at ease. Some trauma threat emerges, and we go into fight or flight or freeze or dissociation, those two modes of response to stress. And then we release and discharge if we have resources, and then we're going back to ease. If we don't have resources, we get stuck in fight or flight. This is one of the things. And you'll notice this when I have seen some of my beloved students, some of my beloved partner. No, just don't want to dish on him right now, but family members that, the littlest thing will have a really, trauma response to it. And we know that when there is a trauma response that, people are stuck in this. So when they want to have a fight about something very little, or, I'm at, that's a trauma response. And then the next one is freeze or dissociation, like, I don't know. And this freezing is what I usually do. I have a hard time, or for many, many years, never questions people's racism, sexism, and all of those things, because I had a freeze response to it. Or dissociation, oh, I don't need to do anything for that. But, and those are the unwholesome or, pathological responses to stress in our lives when we have too much historical trauma in our bodies. So toxic stress impairs mental resources. So when we have that toxic stress, there's a fair amount of papers out there about allostatic load. That's one of the reasons why a lot of historically marginalized people actually have worse health outcomes, because we have a much higher allostatic or stress response load. And part of that is due to a evolutionary psychology thing that we all have of the negativity bias. And the negativity bias is when, you've all heard that wonderful story. Actually, I asked the Cherokee Nation if I could say I was a Cherokee grandfather, and they said, please don't do that, because we have a wolf clan and, we don't want to diss them. So you heard that story, two wolves. The grandfather is telling the grandson, I have two wolves inside me, and they're always fighting it out. One wolf is good, he's kind and generous and wise. And the other wolf is not good at all. He's jealous and he's greedy and he just wants more money. And those two wolves are fighting it out all the time. And then the grandson says, grandfather, who wins? And he said, the wolf that you feed. And that's exactly, what we're talking about here, how to get over the negativity bias. So, it comes out that we scan for bad news, we overfocus on it, and it gets put into our implicit memory. So it becomes a natural response to, and I want to say that a lot of these slides are actually from my friend, Rick Hansen. He and I have gone through training programs together to teach mindfulness. So I borrowed a lot of his slides for this. Anyway, Velcro for the bad and Teflon for the good. All of the good things we don't keep in our mind long enough. So what we want to do is learn how to keep good experiences in our heart and in our body, and to strengthen positive responses to life, so that when difficult things come up, that you have a positive response, because that mental factor is much stronger. So let's start right now. Let's all just do 30 seconds of let's all come into our bodies right now. Coming into our bodies from the top of our head to the tips of our toes. If we have toes, if we don't, that is absolutely fine too. Come into a whole body awareness. Head and torso and arms and pelvic and legs and feet. Thank you, body. Thank you, body. So that's one thing we might do when a real good experience is happening, is we might want to feel that good experience within our whole body. Because what that does is it strengthens our positive outlook on life, and it actually is definitely a resource for safety, because we realize that even in difficult times, we can have a very safe mind frame. So challenges and resources, reflections. So these are questions. What are some of the challenges in your life these days? And what mental resources do or could you develop in order to help you deal with these challenges. We become more compassionate by repeatedly installing experiences of compassion. That's how we strengthen our compassion mental factor. And we can also do that with gratitude and with mindfulness as well. So, how we turn a state into a trait. We have the beneficial experience, we enrich the experience, we absorb the experience. And if we want, we can say, oh, this is the opposite of what happened yesterday. So, let's do it. So, these are our three fundamental needs: safety, satisfaction, and connection. And what are our resources for safety? Self-compassion is a huge resource for safety. And that's the wish that people or beings don't suffer. It's not just the two-leggeds. In Indian country, it's for the four-leggeds, the winged ones, the finned ones, and even our creepy crawler relatives, right? And self-compassion, we get a sense of being cared for. We bring to mind beings that we care about, and we shift that compassion to ourselves. That is the way to do it. And this is really important. This is something that just came out about a year and a half ago. One of the most profound teachers of Buddhism or mindfulness, and Buddhism doesn't have a god or anything, so you can multiple other religions and also do Buddhist practice. It's more like an advanced psychology. And he came out with this brilliant interpretation. That when you are with people who are suffering, and all of us are, right? We want to be there for our family, our friends, that's what service we provide to the community. When we are there for either a group of people or individuals that are really suffering, we could focus on their suffering and, why they're suffering, but that would actually drain our resources for being with them. If we want to really be with them in a very wholesome way and actually pervade love to them, what we want to do is focus on our own wish to be free from suffering. How can we be free from, I see your pain and may you be free from suffering. So, when you're saying that to yourself, when you're with people, you can, and actually compassion feels good. So you actually feel that heart sense, and you're able to be with them. And this is a huge source of anti-burnout, is to be with your wish for them to be well and happy, and not so much focusing on what their pain is. And this is also true for our own pain. I could think right now of 5 things that I'm really stressing about, and rather than think about those things, I can do some compassion meditation for myself. I care deeply for my suffering. May I be free from pain and suffering. May I be wise. May I know the truth. May I know my interconnectedness. And there's a lot of resources, free resources. You shouldn't pay for any of this stuff. 90% of the best stuff is free. So, yeah. So I would advise that. Try to be with your own desire for people to be happy rather than focusing on what their suffering is. What are resources for satisfaction? Feeling grateful. And we can bring gratitude to our mind, and our inner strengths are, understandings. I think working with Indigenous people or being Indigenous people, we really do have a much deeper understanding of things like historical trauma and the impact of history on us. And, we kind of offered that to the other BIPOC communities because it really arose in Indian country at a crucial time. And our inner strengths are attitudes, motivations, virtues, positive emotions, capabilities, and understandings. And there are free resources out there and on how to cultivate those. This book is free. I love this book. And this teacher, actually, he's a British working class monk who, when he was 20 years old, he was a working class guy. He moved to Thailand, and he's 70 years old now. And this guy is one of the most authentic shamans I have ever seen. His talks, and this book is free. If you just Googled Parami space PDF, you would go to some place that you could download it for free. It's an excellent book. And that is about how to strengthen really positive mental factors as a way to increase your satisfaction. And then resources for connection. We all love our connections. And this is about feelings of worth, feelings like, yeah, I'm worth it and people are lucky to be connected to me, or, it's a very positive thing to be connected to me. So this is a forgiveness cycle. I love this. And, this is for every relationship in our life. We can choose to the revenge cycle or the forgiveness cycle. And the biggest element of this is to understand our shared humanity. I mean, something bad could happen to you. And, one of our practices is think about how many people in the world who are feeling this exact same thing right now, and realizing that we're part of a grand humanity. This is not perfect, it's not permanent, and above all, it's not personal. That this is what it means to be human. And forgiving, we can forgive people and then decide whether we want to renew the relationship or release the relationship. And this is Desmond Tutu's book. Desmond Tutu and his daughter wrote this book. And if anybody knows forgiveness, it is Desmond Tutu from South Africa, where they had apartheid till just a few years ago. And then being for yourself, this is really doing self-compassion work for ourselves. Let's try it again. Let's come into a whole body awareness. And, let's just add a little bit of gratitude. Thank you, body. Thank you, feet. If we have them, if we don't, that's absolutely fine. Thank you, legs, pelvic, torso. Thank you, torso. Arms and shoulders and neck and head. I care deeply for my suffering. May I be free from pain and suffering. Body, may you be free from pain and suffering. May you be happy. May we all be happy. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has this experience. And, these are knowledge systems. As we know, there's the Western knowledge system, which has some excellent things to offer. Epistemologies of the global north is what they are. And a lot of us doing interventions research or trying to reduce suffering, we use both Western approaches, but nowadays Indian country is saying, hey, we want cultural and language revitalization. We want culture-centered interventions because, we all know that Native people lived 15 years longer in 1491 than the European aristocracy did. I remember reading an anthropology book that said, yeah, the indigenous people, it takes them about 6 hours a week to get their fundamental needs met. They have enough food, enough clothing, enough shelter, working about 6 hours a week. And the rest of the time they sing, they dance, and they do art. I mean, isn't that the life that we all want to go back to? Yes, instead of being exploited by the medical industrial complex. So, we have totally gone back to a lot of our ceremonies and know the understanding of that. Our research center at the University of Washington has sweats once a month. I personally have done Sundance for many years at Richard Moveskamp's place. And, culture interventions are really what is in right now. And I wanted to talk about mindfulness. It's an epistemology of the global South. And, we all have two knowledge systems. We have our thinking mind, count things, name things, but we all also have a knowledge system of intuitive awareness, and this is where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness is us letting go of our cognitive knowledge system and really bringing a lot more attention to chitta, which is our heart knowledge system. And that's where wisdom arises. And it's wisdom that frees us from suffering and from clinging. It's not a lot of thinking that does. It's having insights that frees us. And, all of this stuff is free. I'm going to put a link to in the chat where you can get this book for free. And, this is my beloved, actually, the Venerable Analia, we've taken each other as siblings. And he actually is very interested in doing work in Indian country. And what does mindfulness do? Mindfulness brings an objectivity to the meditation experience where, it's called the middle way. We're not obsessed or indulgent or privileged, but we also don't deny, repress, or intolerant of things. When we have a little, mindfulness is really defined by the amount of objectivity we have of things that are arising in our mind and in our heart and in our body. And that's what, real authentic Vipassana insight meditation practice will do. It'll really strengthen that objectivity of mind. And when we practice that very deeply, it impacts 3 core skills: concentration, sensory clarity, which means we're able to see clearly what is happening in the moment rather than it being, us being confused about it. And it also enhances equanimity, our ability to be with experience without, clinging or pushing it away. There's an important acronym, RAIN. Any moment that we're confused, we can bring mindfulness on the cushion or chair to do daily meditation, but also bring mindfulness to our daily life. And, if we're confused, we can stop, recognize what is happening in this moment from a deeper wisdom perspective. Allow, okay, whatever is wanting to arise, I see you. And then investigate, what is this? Where did it come from? Why is this so predominant? And then realize that, as I said earlier, we are one person among probably 30 million right now on the planet who are having this experience, given the right causes and conditions. There's a lot of general mindfulness expressions, and what it does, it cultivates really positive mind states, and it purifies, the bad wolf, all of those really mind states that don't produce happiness for us or anybody in our life. And I don't have time right now, or maybe I have 10 minutes. Do I have 10 minutes? So when the guy who invented Vipassana or mindfulness, when he taught his son how to meditate, don't you love this? The first meditation he taught him was 4 elements meditation. And I mean, I have never been to a native ceremony, whether it be the sun dance, sweat lodges, Native American church, where the 4 elements are just bringing them in as a way to embrace our foundational makeup, And so the Buddha taught his son how to do 4 elements meditation. And if I have 10 minutes right now, I'm going to do a quick one for all of us. So let's all come into our body, a whole body awareness, up to the tip of our toes. And what we're going to do, this is one element of Vipassana or mindfulness meditation. We're going to scan our body for the 4 elements. We know that earth element is density and hardness. So we can start with our head. We don't have to necessarily feel density or hardness. Whatever sensations that part of the body is offering, we just say, yes, I see you. So feeling the head for earth element, earth element is bones and teeth. We know it's there. Just feeling the sensations that are being offered. Going to our shoulders, earth element, down our arms to both of our hands, earth element. To our upper torso, we know we have our rib cage, our bones, our spine. Just feel the sensations. Earth element. The lower torso, to our hips, a lot of bones and earth element. Both of our upper legs and knees and calves and feet, earth element. Coming into a whole body awareness. Earth element internally, earth element externally, all the same. Now starting at our feet for water element, we know that, fluids and phlegm and pus and gooey stuff is throughout our whole body. Let's just start with our feet, blood, liquidity, water element to our calves and our knees and thighs, water element to our pelvic area. I'm sure I'm not the only one that water comes out of here. Water element. Just whatever sensations that part of your body is offering as you scan it. To our torso, our lower torso, lots of water element in the belly. Water element and the upper torso. Water element and the shoulders and upper arms and lower arms and hands. Water element to our necks and our beloved heads. We can feel the muckiness of our mouths, and we know our brains are floating in some liquid, and our eyes too. Just feeling our head coming into a whole body awareness. Thank you, body. Water element internally, water element externally, all the same. And now fire element. Fire element is any temperature, heat or coolness, starting with our head. But if we can't feel temperature, that's fine too. Just be happy with whatever sensation the head is offering. But maybe we feel some warmth or heat or coolness. To our neck and our shoulders, fire element. To our arms and our hands, just feeling the sensations. Fire element. To our upper torso, to our lower torso. Lots of fire element in the belly. And our pelvic area. And our legs. Warmth or coolness. And our feet. Coming into a whole body awareness. Fire element internally, fire element externally, all the same. And the final element is air. We know that our bodies are primarily air and space, and we know we don't often cognize that. So just coming into awareness of our beloved feet. Thank you, feet. Air element to our lower legs and our knees and our upper legs. Air element and our pelvic area. I'm sure I'm not the only one that passes air here once in a while. Just feel the sensations of the pelvic area. Moving on to the lower torso. We can feel the breath, the movement of the abdomen. That is air element. To the upper torso, our lungs, feeling their expansion. And moving to our shoulders and our arms and hands, just whatever sensations are being offered. To our necks and to our heads. Air element, feeling the air at the nostrils. Coming into a whole body awareness. Air element internally, air element externally, all the same. Resting in spacious awareness. This is our wisdom place. And this is what we want to cultivate. And this is what we cultivate in native ceremony. So as we can see, this is very much, where we get, it's not the same thing at all. Our ceremonies are sacred. And this is also a ceremony. We can do it by ourselves or we can do it with others. And, if you Googled 4 Elements Meditation Space PDF, you would probably go to 20 free resources on it. That's one of the good things about this tradition, that it's thought not to be sold. You're not supposed to really sell it. There's a little bit of, trauma related to how it's been commercialized, but it's still incredibly useful. I've taught with John Kabat-Zinn, and it's still very useful in that form, but this older, more genuine form is also incredibly helpful to everyone as well. And then another type of meditation is loving kindness meditation, where we just say those terms to ourselves over and over again, as we did during the compassion meditation. And, just saying these over and over to ourselves, our minds will wander, we'll come back, our mind will wander and we'll come back, and we'll strengthen these mental factors in our lives. So that's, I wanted to say this one, that, one of the insights that comes from doing, really strengthening our intuitive awareness, this knowledge system, we realize that everything is imperfect. The job that we just thought we would get and would make us whole, the partner we want, the house we want, the amount of money, the car, anything, you get that. And then 2 days, 5 days, a month later, there's something else you want. So everything is imperfect as far as giving us ultimate satisfaction. Everything is impermanent. Things are changing all the time. So if we think that this truth is going to drive us crazy, wait 5 minutes, because it will be different. And then the last one is, and this is something that we all know, Omi Takwiasan, we are all related. This is a deep indigenous principle of living. And this is, you experience a non-dual awareness where you see the intimacy of being one with everything, of being related to everyone. This practice actually shows us that very directly. So that's all I wanted to say about all of this stuff. Hey, I got through all of those slides and pretty quickly. Wow.
Thank you for sharing. And I see your free mindfulness resources at the end. Just a reminder to our audience, these slides will be available, and all the links will be, of course, included in the PDF version of the slide set.
Yeah.
The recording will also be available as a download from our webpage, and we'll send links to everyone in our audience to both of those resources. I don't know, Bonnie, did you want to discuss the other resources you're showing here?
No, actually, Noah Levine had created a mindfulness intervention for recovery, but he got, actually one thing about doing this meditation is, this practice is Sila Samadhi Panya, which means ethical practice. You could meditate 10 hours a day, and if you're not ethical, you will see no benefit from the meditation. So ethics is a huge part of it. And our dear brother Noah Levine got caught doing some unethical things, so he is not considered part of the our beloved community. But you can still, there are still mindfulness-based recovery groups that are meeting. In fact, I'm going to put a link to a whole bunch of sitting groups, meditation groups for recovery groups. There are LGBTQ groups, trans groups, women's groups, elders groups, and they're all free. So I'm going to put a link to all of those in the chat too. So if you want to stop sharing, that would be fine.
So there's time for you to add those links to the chat box.
Yeah, so does anybody have any questions or comments they want to share? Or actually, I'm also totally open to gentle criticism, so. I'll be pasting stuff in the chat for sure. So, but let's continue our conversation, yeah.
There's we have 17 minutes available to us, so there's plenty of time for our Q&A. And I have colleagues monitoring the chat box, and I know you wanted to be able to share resources. I'm wondering, and we did have a few questions in advance. One observation from Amy Carlo. It was a great presentation, and she would love to listen and learn longer. A comment from our chat box. So again, as comments are shared, observations are made, I'll continue to highlight those. One question that I'd love for us to begin with, you mentioned the negativity bias, and I'm wondering if the negativity bias might help to explain how people experience racism or sexism in Western cultures. Is there a connection there?
Well, I think that racism and sexism, homophobia, ageism, ableism is something that all of us were grown up in, right? I mean, we grew up in a society that does that. And when I'm meditating, I often see those things rise, my own self-hate and my own putting myself down as a Native woman, mixed race Native, and, part African-American. And, I see that all the time. And what I do is when I see those thoughts arise, with my mindfulness, with objectivity, I say, I see you, settler. Right, because that's where, that comes from. Though the settlers, most of the working class people who came over as settlers got totally exploited too. And as we know, they're our relatives too. So we don't want to kick them out of the human environment, but we definitely want to hold them accountable to do their own decolonizing on the structural level, on the community level, and on the individual level. Absolutely. So I think that well, one thing that we can bring to it is compassion. I mean, I'm sure all of us are, particularly those who are, people of color who are from, share some intersectionality identity that's been historically marginalized. We feel our internalized depression all the time. And, what we need to do is hold ourselves with love, realize when the settler is talking to us, saying, no, that's not me, that's not my heart, that's settler talking. And really bring ourselves back to wishing ourselves well, wishing ourselves happy, and doing things that will make us happy, not overburdening ourselves, not working too hard. Yeah, all of those things.
Thank you. I appreciate that insight into settler colonialism. That's an interesting way to frame negativity. I'm curious about how you would address this question about workers that often they deal with aspects of the workplace that could be implicated in promoting toxic stress. Would you have ideas about what workers should do about that part of their workspace that actually contributes to toxic stress?
Well, if it is dealing with patients or community, I would say to come back to a compassionate awareness. I care deeply for your suffering. May you be free from pain and suffering. I think that, and actually, I want to post in the chat that book. I mean, that book is there. I have that book. And how to deal with toxic stress. I would say to maybe come back to really taking care of yourself, sending yourself love, kindness, sending yourself compassion, and drawing, ethical lines. I mean, that's a part of ethical practice, not letting yourself or other people being exploited. And if people are getting exploited, set a good, safe boundary to maybe explore that with the people who have ability for that, say, I know we all mean the best here. We're all trying to do our best, and some things are happening that are lessening or decreasing our ability to be with each other and with our communities. And let's develop a plan to deal with this. What is our de-stressing plan going forward? Do a agency-based mindfulness intervention or something. Yeah.
It's an excellent idea that basing this kind of programming with your agency and having management embrace it sounds like a great approach.
Yes. Yeah.
Again,
yeah.
No, I was just going to just make the observation that we still have a few moments and the chat box is open for those of you who'd like to post a question.
So what I post, okay, let me just say real quick. I posted guided meditations. Again, all of this stuff is free. Don't you love it? If you go to this, go to the bottom of, I think there's like 7 guided meditations of about 20 minutes. I think at the most half an hour each for Satipatthana, which is mindfulness, the real mindfulness. And in there, the second meditation will be the 4 elements meditation. And then I'm also going to post a link to all of his books and articles, which are, free. So you can have them all for free. Anyway, okay.
Bonnie, Jenna Larson had shared that, commented that this was beautiful and she was really thankful, but she also, Jenna asked, do you teach healing for healers?
Actually, I was talking to Healing for Healers. Well, all of you are healers in some regard. I think we all are in some regard. But I actually was talking to Mark and Sabu and Noel about maybe developing a mindfulness curriculum for, for Indian country. I think that would be great. And I hope to do that sometime in the future.
That would be a great outgrowth or evolution of our approach to addressing workplace mental health. That would be wonderful if we can find a way to collaborate in that way, and we look forward to that kind of development of resources and materials. So we'd love to be a part of that.
Yeah, that sounds great. So what I just posted in the chat is, so Buddhism, some people call it a religion. It's more like an incredibly advanced psychology. And I have posted the very brief overview of this tradition as a advanced psychology. I have posted a link to that in the chat, and you can download it. It's 50 pages, but you can see it about what this neuroplasticity, self-directed neuroplasticity retraining is essentially what it is. And, a key element of that is us all, coming back to the core foundational values of Indigenous communities. I'm sure, in Buddhist psychology, there's only 52 mental states that you could have at any time. And a lot of the positive mental states are absolutely, actually, I do have I do a fair amount of work with the tribal colleges, and Sitting Bull College put together the Lakota Paramis. And, I think that is, I wonder if, can I share my screen real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at that. So look at these Lakota Paramis. I just showed you the Parami book. Here's the Lakota Paramis. I love them. And there's a huge, there a lot of these are also part of the Paramis in the that I talked about earlier. respect, generosity, compassion, integrity, patience, honesty, humility, wisdom, bravery, fortitude. And, there's a way, and, this is also how we create satisfaction and connection. And for ourselves is we live by these principles. We all know, I think, that, when you're having a fight with your partner or someone in your community or someone on your workplace, there's a thing called the bliss of blamelessness. When you know that you actually did the best you could with the most positive qualities, you can sit back and have a lot of equanimity about what's happening. But when you really review the situation and see a lot of harm that you've caused, you don't have you can't get the bliss of blamelessness. So what we want to do is strengthen these qualities so that when we're walking in our day-to-day life, those are the qualities that arise in our response to life instead of greed, aversion, and delusion. Those are the three root poisons: greed, aversion, and delusion. And what we're doing is deconditioning those and conditioning the paramis to be that being how we respond to life.
Thank you for sharing that. We certainly appreciate the insight into Sitting Bull College's curriculum and practices. That's wonderful. We're right at a few minutes to go in our session and the time we have together. I wanted to make sure that if there are any final comments or questions, there's still time to put them in the chat box. In just a moment, we'll paste our evaluation link again and encourage you to complete the session evaluation. And finally, we'll end up with a knowledge check. But we still have a few minutes, and if you'd like to get that last question in, if you want to make any final remarks to Dr. Duran, now is the time. It's wonderful. I've really appreciated so many things you had to offer. Here's a question in our chat box, and it's, how did you get into mindfulness coaching, Bonnie?
Okay, so what happened was, I'm a first generation college student, I told you, right? And I was still smoking pot in undergrad school, so I didn't do all that well. But all of my dear friends, what do our beloved white friends do when they graduate from undergraduate school? They go to Europe for the summer, right? And I didn't have any money, but I did have some friends who were going to get jobs at a ski resort, an American military ski resort in Germany. And actually, wow, you can still get jobs there. But anyway, so I moved there when I was 23 years old. Wow. Which is amazing. Yeah, 23, I moved to Germany. And, my first job was as a chambermaid, and my next job was as a pizza cook. And, it was the American military service vacation spot, Garmisch-Partenkirchen, Germany. And from there, I met all of these expatriates, right? All people who would work there and travel the world. So they said, you have to go to India, boy, that is the most unusual place you'll ever go to. So they said, and India is so different, you better check yourself into a out. So, my first big trip to Asia, I pulled up in Kathmandu and checked myself into a Tibetan Buddhist monastery.
Wow.
It was a monastery for young boys, it was like a young boys monastery, but the people who ran it gave a month-long retreat for Westerners on meditation. Wow. Kopan Monastery, they still do it. The month of November, you could all go next November. But anyway, so I went there and I was blown away. I had lived in Europe for like 4 or 5 years before that. And I went to hang out with the Tibetans and I said, oh my God, these are indigenous people, turquoise and coral and long hair. And they felt the same way about me. When they heard me talk with the American accent, they said, what? You're from the United States? They would actually take me around to their friends and say, where do you think she's from? And they'd say Bhutan or, up the road. And then they would say something. And then I would talk and they would all freak out like, oh my God, are you American? But this was in 1982, before there was a lot of, And then once I started meditating, and from that month long, I went to Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha became enlightened, and started meditating, and that totally changed my life.
Wow.
The truth is, there's a lot of satisfaction, and we call it unworldly bliss. A lot of happiness you can get that isn't dependent on external conditions. And that's really wisdom, because can we really ask the external world to be a certain way so we'll be happy? I don't think so.
That's profound wisdom. Your journey is fascinating. I wanted to see if Noel, if there's time to load our knowledge check one more time, and we can get our post responses from our remaining audience participants.
Sure. You can keep talking while it's going on. It'll be up for the next minute.
Okay. Audience, you have 60 seconds to answer our post knowledge items. Please take a look at the polls. One comment in our chat box says, "Thank you for sharing your answer, Bonnie. It sounds like you've had a great journey."
It is, and there's still a fair amount of suffering in it, and I see my impatience and all of that. But when we know that we're trying our best and trying to bring positive mental factors forward, you have the bliss of blamelessness a lot less than you used to have. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
you have it more than you used to have it.
Right. It's a lifelong pursuit. It's never ending.
Yes, absolutely.
I've really appreciated you sharing so much with us, Bonnie, and I'm sure our audience, as much as they've expressed their gratitude, share that same sentiment, that we're really pleased that you were able to share this with us. I'm right at 3 p.m. and we want to be respectful of people's time to the extent we can. And so thank you for sharing this afternoon with us. I hope you've enjoyed our presentation on compassion and care. And I look forward to the next time we have an opportunity to meet. And Bonnie, thank you so much. Again, we really appreciated all the wisdom you had to impart. We're going to make sure that when we share our slides and other resources, we'll make sure we'll keep track of those items you posted in our chat as well, so we can share those. And I know you mentioned that you had a series of resources that you wanted to offer as a PDF file. So that'll be something we try to make available as well. So again, thank you so much for everything you've been able to impart to us, and on behalf of the audience, have a good day, and we'll look forward to seeing you the next time.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
Thank you, Bonnie. Take care now.
Bye.
Goodbye, audience. Have a good day.
Thank you.